Ambassador Zara Chun stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, watching the swirling nebulae of the Rawl core system paint cosmic murals across the darkness. Her weathered hands, scarred from years of fieldwork on, war-torn worlds traced the cool metal railing as she contemplated humanity's role in this vast galaxy. For 47 years, she had served as Earth's voice among the stars, and in that time, she had witnessed her species earn both respect and ridicule in equal measure. The Galactic Council chambers on Zarian Prime echoed with familiar laughter whenever humans proposed another peace treaty. Another aid package, another olive branch extended to species that had shown them nothing but contempt. The Kethver Empire called them soft-scaled weaklings. The crystalline Zephyrians referred to humans as the galaxy's bleeding hearts. Even their allies among the Centaurian Federation often exchanged knowing glances when Earth's representatives spoke of diplomacy over warfare, healing over conquest, yet they kept coming back. When the plague ravaged the Outer Rim worlds, human medical ships arrived first. When the Proxima Wars threatened to consume 3 sectors, human mediators brokered the peace that still held today. When refugees fled the expanding void storms, Earth's colonies opened their doors without question. They had learned to absorb the mockery, to shoulder the burden of being seen as the galaxy's idealistic fools. Dr. Marcus Webb, Chun's chief medical officer and oldest friend, joined her at the viewport. His hair had gone silver during their decades of service, but his eyes still held the same passionate fire that had driven him to leave Earth's comfortable medical facilities for the harsh realities of frontier medicine. "The settlement reports are in from New Geneva," he said softly, handing her a datapad. "Population, 47,000. Mostly agricultural scientists, their families, and a few mining operations. They've been asking for upgraded defense platforms for months." Chun sighed, scrolling through the peaceful settlement's modest requests. New Geneva represented everything beautiful about humanity's expansion into the galaxy. Not conquest, but cultivation. They had turned the barren rock into a garden world, sharing their agricultural techniques freely with neighboring systems. Children played in parks their parents had carved from asteroid soil. Scientists worked tirelessly to develop crops that could feed both human and alien populations. It was a testament to what humanity could build when given the chance to grow, rather than fight. "The Council voted down their defense request again," Chun murmured, her voice heavy with resignation. "Too expensive," they said. "Too militaristic for a peaceful research colony." She looked out at the stars, each one representing countless worlds, countless species who had learned to take Earth's protection for granted while simultaneously mocking their reluctance to show true strength. Neither of them could have imagined that within 72 hours, New Geneva would be nothing but radioactive ash, and the galaxy would learn why predators had once feared to walk upright when humans still dwelt in caves. Part 2. The Mockery. Before the storm asterisk, the Vaer Dominion's War Council convened in the obsidian halls of their fortress moon, Kelvareth, where the screams of conquered worlds seemed to echo eternally through the volcanic rock. High Commander Vexthul, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with the neural implants that connected him to 1,000 torture worlds, studied the holographic display of human settlements with something resembling amusement. The other galactic powers had always underestimated the Vayor's capacity for calculated cruelty, but they understood perfectly well how to read galactic politics. 40 years of peace negotiations, rumbled Warcast Gorenak, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind. 40 years of human diplomats offering aid packages and medical supplies, while we consolidated power across 17 sectors. They even sent relief ships when we accidentally irradiated the Keltheran colonies. The assembled commanders joined. His macabre amusement, their carapaces chittering with shared contempt. The humans had indeed become the galaxy's most reliable source of unintentional comedy. Their ambassador, that weathered woman with her scarred hands and idealistic speeches, had actually proposed a cultural exchange program just months after Veyor. Shock troops had committed documented war crimes on 3 different worlds. The Galactic Council had barely suppressed their laughter during that session, while Earth's representatives spoke earnestly about building bridges of understanding with species that collected sentient beings as trophies. Fleet Master Zalvith projected tactical analyses across the chamber's walls, showing human defensive capabilities with clinical precision. Their military doctrine prioritizes protection over projection. Excellent shields, adequate weapons, but their fleet positioning reveals a species psychologically incapable of preemptive strikes. They wait, they defend, they retreat when faced with overwhelming force, then return with medical supplies for the wounded. His assessment was met with approving hisses from the assembled War Council. Intelligence reports confirmed what every species in the galaxy had observed. Humans possessed formidable technology, but seemed constitutionally incapable of using it for anything beyond defensive purposes. Their dreadnoughts were more hospital ship than battlecruiser. Their orbital platforms prioritized evacuation capabilities over weapon systems. Even their vaunted special operations units spent more time on rescue missions than assassination protocols. Commander Vextil's neural implants pulsed as he accessed real-time intelligence from Veyor infiltrators throughout the galaxy. The Kethver Empire was positioning for expansion into the outer spiral. The Zephyrian Collective was developing new phase-shift weapons. The Centaurian Federation was quietly reinforcing their border worlds. Meanwhile, Earth continued to file diplomatic protests about aggressive posturing and proposed joint scientific expeditions to foster mutual understanding. New Geneva presents the perfect demonstration, Vexthol declared, his voice carrying the authority of a being who had personally overseen the extinction of 12 species. A single decisive strike against an undefeated human colony will show the galaxy that Earth's protection is worthless. Their response will be predictable: protests, economic sanctions, perhaps a strongly worded statement about crimes against sapient life. The other powers will watch, take notes, and realize that humanity's age of influence is ending. None of them could have predicted that within days their fortress moon would be a lifeless drift of cooling rock, and their entire command structure would simply ... vanish. Asterisk. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the crystalline chambers of Nexus Station, where representatives from 47 species gathered to witness what they assumed would be another display of human weakness. Ambassador Zara Chun stood at the central podium, but something fundamental had changed in her bearing. Gone was the patient diplomacy, the careful rhetoric, the endless willingness to find common ground with those who saw her species as prey. Her scarred hands no longer gestured with hope. They rested motionless on the podium's edge, like a surgeon's instruments waiting to cut. New Geneva is gone, she said simply, her voice carrying across the vast chamber with crystalline clarity. 47,000 civilians, vaporized by Veyor orbital bombardment while they slept. Children in their beds, scientists in their laboratories, farmers in their fields. She paused, letting the weight of those numbers settle over the assembly like a shroud. The youngest victim was 3 months old. Her name was Sarah Kinpatel. She was learning to smile. The Kethver representative, Ambassador Gorthik, shifted uncomfortably in his chitinous shell, but maintained his species' traditional arrogance. Regrettable casualties of territorial expansion, he rumbled through his translator device. The Veyor Dominion has claimed that sector under ancient conquest rights. Surely Earth understands the necessities of shut up. Chun's words cut through the chamber like a blade, and Gorthik's mandibles clacked in shock. In 47 years of diplomatic service, No human representative had ever interrupted another ambassador with such naked hostility. The Zephyrian delegate's crystalline form shimmered with surprise, while the Centaurian Federation's ambassador, Veltar, leaned forward with sudden attention. Asterisk. Sean activated the holographic display behind her, showing the smoking crater that had once been humanity's most peaceful settlement. For decades, you have watched us heal your worlds, broker your peace treaties, and absorb your contempt with the patience of the species that chose cooperation over conquest. You laughed at our bleeding hearts. You mocked our soft-scaled weakness. You assumed our mercy was born from inability rather than choice. Her scarred hands moved to the control interface, and new images appeared, ships vanishing from sensor. Screens, entire fleets, simply gone. The Valyor High Command ceased to exist 18 hours ago, she continued conversationally. Their fortress moon Kelvereth is now a debris field. Their war fleets have been reduced to constituent atoms. 17 Vayor worlds have been depopulated, not destroyed, depopulated. Every military installation, every government complex, every individual who gave or carried out the order to attack New Geneva has been precisely surgically removed from existence. The chamber erupted in shocked chittering, crystalline chiming, and horrified gasps as the assembled delegates processed what they were hearing. The Vayor Dominion had controlled 17 worlds, commanded fleets numbering in the thousands, maintained military installations that were considered impregnable by galactic standards. The idea that they could be neutralized in less than a day was beyond comprehension. Ambassador Veltar of the Centaurian Federation found her voice first. That's impossible. Our sensors show no human fleet movements, no military deployments. Exactly, Sean said with a smile that contained no warmth whatsoever. You never saw us coming because you spent so long assuming we couldn't. She gestured to the display showing empty space where Vayor installations had once stood. My government has authorized me to deliver one final diplomatic message to this assembly. Earth withdraws from all mutual defense pacts, trade agreements, and cooperative frameworks effective immediately. We will no longer heal your wounded or broker your peace. The age of human charity is over. The silence that followed was absolute and terrifying. Asterisk. In the depths of space, beyond the reach of any galactic sensor network, the Terran defense fleets, most classified vessels, drifted like shadows among the stars. Admiral Sarah Voss stood on the bridge of the Retribution's edge, watching tactical displays that showed the systematic dismantling of an entire stellar empire in real time. These were not the hospital ships and diplomatic cruisers the galaxy had grown accustomed to seeing from Earth. These were weapons of war, designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing their own kind before they ever reached the stars. The Ghost Protocol had been activated only once before in human history, during the Titan Rebellion of 2387, when Earth's own colonies had declared independence and threatened to use antimatter weapons against civilian populations. The response had been swift, surgical, and so thoroughly classified that most of the galaxy still believed the rebellion had ended through diplomatic negotiations. In truth, it had ended when every rebel leader simultaneously ceased to exist, their ships, bases, and supporters vanishing without a trace or declaration of war. Target acquired, reported Commander Liu Wei from his position at the tactical station. His fingers moved across holographic interfaces with the precision of a concert pianist, orchestrating death from millions of kilometers away. Vayor garrison on Kelthrin 7. Population: 40,000 military personnel, 0 civilians. The distinction mattered. For all their fury, for all their unleashed wrath, humans had not abandoned their fundamental principles. They simply applied them with terrifying efficiency. Captain Maria Santos, commander of the stealth destroyer Silent Justice, watched through her ship's quantum sensors as another Valor fortress world prepared for an invasion that would never come. Instead, phase shift missiles materialized inside their command centers, bypassing shields and armor as if they were smoke. Orbital defense platforms simply stopped existing, their matter converted to energy so completely that not even debris remained to mark their passing. "This isn't war," whispered Lieutenant Commander Chun Rodriguez, monitoring communications from the targeted worlds. "This is editing reality." He had served aboard diplomatic vessels for 15 years, watching his species absorb insults and injuries with endless patience. Now he was witnessing that same patient precision applied to systematic annihilation, and it terrified him more than any traditional battle could have. The Veyor had made the fatal error of believing that human mercy stemmed from weakness rather than choice. They had mistaken a species that chose to heal worlds for one that was incapable of burning them. Now they were learning why Earth's military doctrine had always emphasized defense. Because a species that could build impenetrable shields and perfect medical technology could also build weapons that bypassed every known defense and delivered death with surgical precision. Admiral Voss moved through her ship's corridors, passing soldiers who had spent their careers training for a war they hoped would never come. These were not the peacekeepers and medics the galaxy knew. These were the descendants of creatures that had once driven megafauna to extinction with nothing but sharpened sticks and superior tactics. They had channeled that same relentless intelligence into becoming the galaxy's healers, but they had never forgotten how to be its apex predators. "Final target confirmed," announced the communications officer. "Veyor High Command's personal escape vessel has been located. High Commander Vex Thul is attempting to reach neutral territory." Admiral Voss studied the tactical display, noting that the escape craft was heading toward a populated trade station where hundreds of innocent beings conducted daily commerce. "Precision strike authorized," she said quietly. "Target the command cabin only. Leave the rest of the ship intact." Even in their wrath, even in their terrible unity of purpose, humans remained human. They would not kill innocents to reach their reach. Guilty, even when that precision made their task infinitely more difficult. Vex Thul's escape craft continued toward the trade station, its commander unaware that his fate had already been decided by beings he had dismissed as soft-hearted weaklings. In 63 seconds, he would simply cease to exist, leaving behind only a perfectly circular hole where his command cabin had been, and a galaxy that would never again mistake human kindness for human weakness. Asterisk. 6 months after the Veyor Dominion simply vanished from existence, the galactic balance of power had fundamentally shifted in ways that no political scientist or military strategist had thought possible. The Nexus station hummed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species conducted their daily business under the shadow of Earth's newly revealed capabilities. Where once humanity had been seen as the galaxy's well-meaning but ineffective peacekeepers, they were now regarded with the kind of respectful terror usually reserved for cosmic phenomena beyond mortal comprehension. Ambassador Zara Chun had not returned to the diplomatic corps. Instead, she had retired to a quiet colony world where she tended gardens and wrote memoirs that would never be published. In her place stood Ambassador David Park, a former military strategist whose diplomatic credentials were impeccable, but whose eyes held the same cold precision that had characterized the Ghost Fleet operations. The galaxy was learning to read the subtle differences between humans offering aid and humans delivering ultimatums. The Kethver Empire, once known for their casual brutality toward lesser species, had quietly begun implementing humanitarian reforms in their territorial governance. Ambassador Gorthic now spoke of mutual respect and peaceful coexistence, with the kind of fervor typically reserved for religious converts. The change had nothing to do with enlightenment, and everything to do with the 17 empty worlds. that had once housed Vior civilization, worlds that remained perfectly habitable but completely devoid of any being who had participated in the New Geneva massacre. Elena Vasquez, formerly of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, now commanded the patrol cruiser New Geneva's Memory as it conducted routine sweeps through former conflict zones. Her ship's medical bays and laboratories remained fully equipped, but they were now accompanied by weapon systems that made veteran warriors wake up in cold sweats. The galaxy was learning that human ships designed for healing could be retooled for precise destruction in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. The Zephyrian Collective had begun offering Earth-exclusive trade agreements, their crystalline representatives no longer shimmering with barely concealed amusement when humans spoke of peace and cooperation. The Centaurian Federation had quietly upgraded their own military capabilities while simultaneously reaching out to establish stronger diplomatic ties with Earth. Even the enigmatic Void Dancers, who typically ignored younger species entirely, had sent representatives to establish formal contact protocols with humanity. Dr. Marcus Webb had also retired from diplomatic service. But his replacement, Dr. Sarah Kim Chun, who had taken her name in honor of New Geneva's youngest victim, approached her work with the same healing hands and compassionate heart that had always characterized human medicine. The difference was in her eyes. The galaxy could see that these same hands that could perform miraculous surgery could also guide precision strikes that left no trace of their targets. On Earth itself, the population had reacted to their militaries' actions with complex emotions. There were those who celebrated finally seeing their tormentors receive justice, and others who mourned the loss of their species' innocence. But there was also a grim satisfaction in knowing that their children would grow up in a galaxy where human was no longer synonymous with victim. The predator cubs their ancestors had once been had never truly disappeared. They had simply been channeled into protection rather than conquest. The most profound change, however, was in the galaxy's approach to conflict resolution. Wars that might once have dragged on for decades now ended with swift diplomatic solutions as soon as Earth offered to mediate. Planets that had been preparing for invasion suddenly found themselves engaged in peace negotiations. The mere possibility of attracting human attention had become a deterrent, more effective than any weapon system ever devised. Ambassador Park stood at the observation deck where his predecessor had once contemplated humanity's role among the stars. The view was the same, but everything had changed. Earth had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had conquered it through the demonstration that their mercy had always been a choice, not a limitation. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was no longer a place where kindness was mistaken for weakness. In the words of the memorial erected at New Geneva's former location, here lie 47,000 souls who died so that billions more might live in a galaxy where mercy is respected rather than mocked. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps for the first time in its violent history, it might finally know peace. Asterisk.